I'm very glad to be here today to celebrate the World Toilet Day and 20 years of work of the WTO and the great work of Jack Sim, my dear friend, and his colleagues. It has been a long period where he and I have been on the same barricades, together with, for instance, the King of the Netherlands, but also, I would say, millions and millions of people, to break the taboo about sanitation and toilets and turn it into an issue of development and, in fact, an issue of human rights, which it is. Water and sanitation is a human right for people. And I commend you, Jack, for the work that you've done to make this such a strong reality for also people who wanted very much to be on the side of changing conditions for people on the ground. I always live by the UN Charter, and I always remind myself and my friends and colleagues that the first 3 words of the Charter is "we the peoples." We have to be helping people on the ground with their real problems. And a problem which is so crucial and so humiliating, I would say, for many, is to have not to have sanitation and water. I saw that when I was coordinator for the humanitarian work in the 90s. I went to Africa, I went to Asia, and I saw what a burden this was for people health-wise, but also basically for human dignity. And at that time, the figure for people who did not have sanitation was 2.5 billion. I think it's going down to approximately 2 billion, but that's far too much. And there's also, at that time, it was 1 billion people who was practicing open defecation, a word which was then not acceptable in the diplomatic language. And now the figure is, I think, 637 million people who practice open defecation. And not to speak about water, which was at that time 1 billion people without clean water. Now it's going down to 800 million or so. So we have seen progress, and I myself base my engagement with the same as Jack and his colleagues, namely seeing the realities on the ground and translating that to the world where action can lead to improving those conditions. I saw too much of people who died out of diarrheas and dysentery, and I saw girls who were suffering from not having toilets in Africa and who stayed away from school because of their menstruation periods. And this made such a deep impression on me that I felt that I had to develop powerful narratives, powerful stories about this and live up to my engagement. And I remember I lifted my glass of water in front of all the member states in the General Assembly. And I, above all, remember the wonderful cooperation that Singapore and Jack and I had 2013 on the Sanitation for All resolution, where the World Toilet Day came about. That was a day of real celebration and of great significance for millions and millions of people around the world. It is one of my most joyful moments, and especially when I'm asked in interviews what I remember most, they are somewhat surprised that I still mention toilets and the progress for toilets, the work to make life in dignity for all. Today we have, as a result of the activities, not least of WTO and our friends who are committed to working for sanitation, we have a sustainable development goal among the 17 goals that were adopted in September 2015. I was then, as Deputy Secretary General, responsible partly for that negotiation from the Secretariat side, together with Amina Mohammed, who is now my successor in that position. And I must say it was not hard to bring about the goal number 6. Some other goals were more problematic. I will not mention some of them, but certainly goal number 6 on water and sanitation and wash, also including hygiene, was rather less complicated to get through. There was a realization that If we move on sanitation and water, which is such a concrete area of work, then we can make real progress. If we do that, we have effects on health. Doing water and sanitation right means tremendous progress for health. It means also a lot for equality between men and women, between girls and boys. Remember what I said about the toilets for girls. And it makes a tremendous impact on extreme poverty and even on education. So all this work for the SDGs revolves around the principle that fulfilling these goals means that we have a sort of mutually strengthening process, and water is certainly such a strong sector. Now, of course, we have the COVID-19, and it is a setback for development. It is a setback if you just think about the fact that we all need to have clean water available to deal with this pandemic. And we also need to realize that we can't, in many poor countries, poor environments, have social distancing if you live 10 or 15 people in a small room. So we need to see that we mobilize resources for water and sanitation and hygiene also today. It is one very concrete way of showing the way forward and giving new energy to the SDG implementation. But I would say, after having negotiated these goals, that we cannot do it alone. It is not a matter only for United Nations. It's not only a matter for governments. It's not only a matter for parliaments. It's a matter for civil society, for business, for the universities, for research and technology. You need to have mobilization not only in silos, vertically, so to speak. You need to work horizontally across the different areas of responsibility. And by that, we reach a new dynamics. And I think a movement like the WTO and my own organization, which I created in 2009 in Sweden, after I served as foreign minister of my country, is also meant to play this role. It is in fact Water Aid, which is one, in my view, I'm partial of course, but one of the best organizations in that sector of outside organizations, civil society, that does play a role both for advocacy and establishing accountability, but also for operational work and not least training. So I think this approach that you, Jack, introduced by bringing the toilet issue to the highest levels of government, as you have done so successfully in so many countries. I'm really impressed by how many prime ministers and presidents are lining up behind you, or at your side rather, but also that it is all related in the end to the little village in Africa or the villages in South Asia, where people really are suffering. I remember when I was mediating in the conflict in Darfur in 2007 and 2008, I was flying over the territory which was torn by the civil war going on, but also by drought and horrible atrocities. But I came to a village and the local women were chanting a song to me. And I asked my host, a teacher who knew English, what they were saying. And they said, water, 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 toilets, toilets, toilets. Because they had no chance to keep their children safe and healthy if they wouldn't receive this. They had to walk for miles to get water. And when I saw the toilets, it's something I don't want to see again. And I felt that I promised myself at that time, you probably have a similar experience, Jack. I promised myself that I would be engaged with the water issues my whole life as a tribute to the children who I saw dying out of diarrhea and dysentery at that time. So it all goes down to, yes, we have to mobilize the political leadership, and they do accept that responsibility. They should do it even more now when we are in the post-COVID situation. But we should also be true and faithful to the people on the ground, the people who we are to serve. And if I come back to the United Nations, who are represented by the first 2 or 3 lines, 3 words of the Charter, we the peoples. So I'm honored to be asked to open this meeting and to say that we must now mobilize new energy and think of the world that is being shaped post-COVID-19. What kind of world do we want after COVID-19? I hope we want a world which lives in peace with nature and also fulfills the needs for the majority of the nations, so that we instill a new sense of trust that our organizations, that our governments, that our leaders actually care for life on the ground for the people. And if that new philosophy, or rather a philosophy that is old but should be revived, is really vitalized, then we can see the sacrifices of COVID-19 as being legitimate, because we take this as an opportunity to think, what kind of world do we need after COVID-19? And then we have as a tool to repair the world, a tool which is actually a survival kit for humanity. We have the Sustainable Development Goals, these 17 goals, out of which goal number 6 is superbly important. And I commend you who all are engaged in this work for the commitment and the passion that you have to bring about change in a positive direction in the years to come. So thank you very much.